sometimes when you take your focus off of you and put your focus on others, it can open the door for something to, come along and help you along the way as well.
Yeah.
And what is good for them and them solely and thought about others, I think we'd be in a much different situation in a lot of areas
Yeah.
of life.
Welcome. This is For Better and Worth.
The podcast where we don't believe you have to sacrifice your relationship while you grow and build your net worth.
We are your hosts.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Ericka Young. And we're so glad you're joining us today.
All right, y'all, let's get into it. What's up, honey?
Hey, we are back. And
Back at it.
Yes. Are we close enough?
Yeah.
You want to be closer to me? I love it. Because
I'll get close to you. Don't be surprised.
well, yeah, I was the one who was like, you need to move. Yeah, actually. Anywho,
We'll show you all some of the outtakes that take place.
it's
behind the scenes.
ridiculous
It's
around here.
hilarious.
It's
So-
ridiculous.
But
So,
we're going to get to the meat and potatoes of it today.
yeah, we're going to talk about something I don't think that we've talked about ever on the podcast.
I don't think we've talked about it. We've talked a lot about relationships and money and saving and getting out of debt and all that stuff, but there's another side to this coin that you really do need to think about as well.
Yeah.
So why
So,
don't you lead us into that?
yeah, we're going to talk about giving in general. And then also just the specifics of where you could be giving and why those things are important. But I think it is a quandary that people find themselves
Yeah.
in on do they give
While they're still in debt.
in
or-
debt or at a season of life. And I do think that it can bring up a lot of emotions with
Yeah.
couples when they disagree on this topic, especially because giving can be a love language for people. Like it is sort of a heartbeat for them. It just makes them really feel good. And for others, it is not so. And that can be a source of contention.
And I think initially whenever people hear the word giving or be a giver, I think they're thinking about tithing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably where we're going to start is,
If you're a
tithing.
Christian,
Yeah.
Or any other religion, there may be some expected guidelines around giving.
Yeah, if you're a religious person, tithing is nothing that is probably new.
Yes,
So-
right. And so that's a big deal. It's a big deal.
And I think even beyond that, like we could get into it and talk about it, but even if you're not a religious person, you could still be a giver because I
Right.
think the heart behind giving is to help meet the needs of others that are less fortunate because
Mhm.
I don't care what your situation is, it could be worse.
Sure.
And I think about, our life and what our life situation looks like. And I feel so very blessed that, God has put us in position to live a great life. But it's taken time. And from the beginning, it was good. And
Yeah.
it has only gotten better. But
And here's the thing. If you have a roof over your head, food on your table, clothes on your back, and
say it.
and people that you are in community with or that love you,
Say it.
you are wealthier than 90+% of the population of the world.
That's what I'm talking about.
So even if you don't like your clothes or your home is in need of repair or you wish you could have steak more often, you are still wealthier than most people. Now, the U.S. is the wealthiest nation on the earth. And so we can get into our feelings about what we don't have.
Look. I think, people know that we like to travel.
Yeah.
And we have been very blessed to go a lot of places around the world. And it's not to just go and say, oh, I've been here, I've been there. But I think it just offers a wider point of view and a greater perspective. And that's something that I've always wanted our kids to have is a greater perspective around life.
Yeah.
And I remember there was some years ago that we went on a missions trip.
Yeah.
And this was the first time we'd ever been on a missions trip.
And we did it as a family, all four of us.
Right. And we, you don't know what to expect. You think you know what's going to be there. But when we got there and we went to Haiti, and it was years after the earthquake, like years. But when we got there, it looked like the earthquake had just happened,
Right.
and it was astounding.
It was.
And when you saw like the kids, because we did so many different things, but we had a chance to interact with some kids in some local schools and some villages, and all they wanted really was a hug or for you to hold their hand. It's like they were craving just love.
Yep.
And they didn't. Some of them had shoes, some of them didn't. Some of them had,
They
decent clothes. Some of them,
they had a
didn't.
makeshift ball that they made out of trash. That's the kind of stuff they were dealing with.
And at one point, they had like a 2-liter bottle
Right, that they were
that
kicking
they were
around.
using as like a soccer ball.
Right. Yeah.
And so and I bring that up because when we came home, I was like, look, no matter what our situation is at home, it's 100 times better than anything that we've seen. And sometimes it's difficult for people to look at their own situation and realize that their situation is so much better than so many other people, because we tend to focus on the dire side of things versus the side of, man, I'm doing so much better than other people.
Yeah. So I know people might not have the same vantage point, but I think that we need to give the background, right? So Chris and I met at our church picnic in Detroit, Michigan. We were both very, would you say we were searching at that? I mean, we knew God, like, so we're Christian, we're believers, and that's where we met. So that was sort of, I feel like, the foundation for our relationship. And on our podcast, I don't feel like we've ever actually shared that explicitly, but I feel like it gives you the context for some of the stuff that we're going to talk about.
Conversation to come.
Yeah, but that's where we met. You know what I mean? So to some degree, because I met you at church, I met you there, I was like, he's got to be somebody who loved God, and that's what I wanted in a partner. That's what I wanted in my spouse.
Yeah, I wasn't faking it.
No, I knew it. I knew that. I mean, you were real. There were things that you were doing, and I was like, oh, yeah, he for real. He for real. Like, I would go back to college. The two things that I remember specifically that reminded me of the good dude you is that you would pray with me before I got back on the road to go back to college after we saw each other on the weekend. I'm like, oh, for real? He praying with me? That's crazy. I ain't never had anybody pray with me. And I'm like 20 years old. I mean, a guy. And then you left me notes on my car. Like when we were at church, you would leave me a note because you worked in the parking lot. And I still have some of those notes.
Really?
You had like those little small notebooks that could fit in your hand. And I think it might have been a flip notebook or something. You would tear a sheet of paper out and it would just be the note. You would put it under my windshield wiper.
I don't even remember that.
I'm going to go pull them out.
Wow.
Yeah. That was...
Look, I was player back then.
You had a little bit of Christian game up in here.
Yeah, but I even... When you talk about being a giver, I think about like... I said we went on a mission trip as a family.
Yeah.
But I don't remember... I think I told you that when I was in college, I spent one of my spring breaks...
Yeah.
Like working for Habitat for Humanity, like renovating like this quadplex apartment building, and I think it was in like New York or something, or New Jersey. And I spent my whole spring break working. I woke up from work using a jackhammer. I woke up and my hands were like this.
Yikes.
Like in the morning, because I had been on that jackhammer like all day. But I think I had a heart to be a giver even then. And before we met, like I was going to school full time and working full time. So because I had, a real job, I was tithing then. And I felt like I wanted to be a giver, and, I was trying to grow in my relationship. So I said, I'm just going to start and just stay committed to it.
So we were taught as a Christian that you tithe, which is 10%, give your dollars, which you earn, to the church to keep the doors open, and
it's the principle behind it, because people will get caught up with like, well, I don't give my money to the church. And it's like, you got to honor God. You got to honor God and make the commitment there. And
so I think, and for context, when we got married, we were in our early 20s.
We both had car notes and credit cards.
Yeah, we had a bunch of debt. We started off our marriage with over $60,000 in debt. And so one would think, oh, it doesn't make sense to tithe. because you could be putting that money towards debt
Towards
reduction.
debt or building your savings or whatever.
And our philosophy, and I'm so glad that we were in agreement about this, was that we can't afford not to. In that regard, our commitment to God was such that we were like, you know what? He's going to help us get out of debt.
Yeah.
So we got to make sure we put him first. So I say all that because we didn't stop tithing while we were getting out of debt.
And I know that's a debate with
It is
with
a
some
big debate.
people, and they're like, "Well, man, I need to get out of debt," and it's like, well, I think about the old grandmothers is like, or the old pastors and deacons be like, you can't beat God's giving.
That's right.
You
can't
outgive
outgive
God. So it's like, okay, well, and no matter where you're at in your walk or your faith walk or whatever it is that you're doing to be a better person, you have to make a determination for yourself where your commitment level is. And I felt like, look, if we couldn't live on 100%, then 90% ain't gonna make a difference.
And we struggle. I mean, I'm not saying that tithing was not the reason we struggled. We struggled because we had over $1,200 a month in debt payments to pay. Right. And so
400. What was it? $421.
$451.21 was our monthly payments for student loans all by itself. But we had 2 car notes and we had credit cards.
It's funny. Somebody today would probably laugh at a $451.21. Student loan payment, because it has just skyrocketed.
It really has.
The amount of debt that
it really
students incur going to college, and that's why it's important. It's important to all you high schoolers. It's important to study, to get good grades, score well on that PSAT.
Well, and also to figure out it's school choice.
Yes.
It's really school choice. If either one of us had decided to go out of state for school, it would have cost even more.
Yeah. And if college is for you. Because some kids, college is not for them. So it's like, why go and incur $150,000 in debt when college isn't even the place that you should be? You should be in trade school, or you should be doing something different. Yeah. And I think that's where parents have to be realistic in helping to guide their children and how they go. So,
and I think that community college is also a first step that can be taken to reduce the cost for sure, because most students can go to community college, get their prereqs out in the first 2 years, and then go to a major university and
while you figure it out,
save half the money. You know what I mean? Get you an associate's degree or what have you, and then determine, do you want to go to that next level? Mm-hmm. And so I have seen quite a few people who justifiably in their budget, they can't tithe because they physically can't do it because a bill won't get paid. Like, their budget is so tight, and I find that to be obviously challenging. But I think that I fully think that tithing is a heart issue. Would you agree?
I would agree with that.
It is the mechanics and the technicalities of writing the number down or donating when you're online or whatever it is, however you do it is different, or planning for it on the budget. But it's a heart thing. And so maybe this is telling you, if your heart is saying, I need to be a tither, then maybe you need to ensure that you get rid of some of this debt. Because it could very well be that your tithe is going to this car payment. How do you get that car payment completed, done, finished, out the way, so that you can actually become the type of giver you want to be?
And I also think that even if it's like, if someone is so tight where their budget doesn't allow for that, maybe that's just a season.
Sure.
Because, get your financial house in order so that you can make room for that to be a giver. And we're going to talk about other types of giving, because I think there are people who may not be tithers, but they just are philanthropic by nature, where they want to be givers. And you can give a small amount consistently and still be philanthropic. It doesn't have to be tens of millions of dollars that you give away, because I think it goes back to the point that you made. It's the heart. Yeah. Because there are causes that people support and they want to see moved forward. And a lot of times those causes require, support, and they require people to give donations to see that cause continued on, especially a lot of, health aware, causes, or, different things that they're nonprofits
Yeah.
and they require support
Yeah,
from
absolutely.
individuals.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to give. I mean, a lot of people, are politically inclined. They want to give to political campaigns. Some people want to donate to sponsor a child in a different country. Some people want to make sure that a missionary, has their needs met on a routine basis. I've had clients who are like, I'm not giving this thing up. And I'm like, okay, so that is a priority for you. Then that
And
means something else may have to give because you got to make room for that.
yeah, and homelessness is becoming a prevalent issue
Yeah.
across the country. And there's a lot of places that people can give and donate to help combat some of the homelessness. And
Yeah.
I know there's other things associated with homelessness like mental health issues, but if you support those organizations, then people can get the help, then maybe that can help reduce the level of homelessness as well. So there's a lot of areas where you could donate or be a giver. So
how do you feel like people need to determine when is the right time to give?
well, I think it goes back to what you said. It's a heart issue. And I think that someone who is even in a bind financially with their budget, make a little bit of room because I'm a firm believer in I'm just gonna say karma. Like what you give out is what you will get back. And if we're talking to people and they're talking about, financially I'm trapped or I'm, struggling and I'm looking to change my situation. Sometimes when you take your focus off of you and put your focus on others, it can open the door for something to, come along and help you along the way as well.
Yeah.
And I think if more and more people stop focusing just on themselves
Sure.
and what is good for them and them solely and thought about others, I think we'd be in a much different situation in a lot of areas of life.
So you mentioned, make a little bit of room. So maybe you're not beginning with 10%. Maybe you're beginning with 1% or 5%. And here's what I really like about people who are committed to giving to someone else, because you said take your focus off yourself, is you actually have to look at numbers. You literally should be looking at your budget and saying, how can I make this work? Even if it's $39 a month to sponsor the kid overseas, right? Like you need to be looking to ensure that you can afford to do it. So it forces you to pay attention to your own numbers. That's what I love about whatever giving it is. You got to figure out how to make room, no matter how much, right? And so I love that aspect of it because then you begin to see, oh, I spent that much money on dining out. Like surely if I don't dine out 2 times per month, if I reduce it simply by 2 times per month, I can do something.
We were out earlier today and we were meeting with some people and we met at Starbucks and we were talking about how much people spend on Starbucks and how that can add up over time. And they were fortunate enough that, they had a connect and they were getting some free Starbucks.
Okay, a connect. Let's be clear. Their kid worked for Starbucks.
Right. And so they were getting some free Starbucks and but it made you think about like I know I go to Starbucks and the drink is like $6.
It is.
It's like,
The two of us spent $12 that day.
right.
Today.
Today. And you think about people who go to Starbucks every day or people who buy coffee every day. And I'm not talking about stopping at the gas station, getting the dollar something, coffee that you put your own cream in. I'm talking about people who go to their preferred coffee shop and they get a $6 whatever drink it is, and they do that pretty regularly. That adds up.
That's $180 a month if you go 30 days a month.
And that's where you can make room.
Absolutely.
It's like, I'm not telling people to don't go. Maybe instead of going 5 days, you go 2 days.
Yeah.
Or maybe instead of going 2 days, you go 1 day.
Right.
And then you make some coffee at home, or you buy some groceries and take a lunch versus dining out 3 or 4 days a week. I think people can focus on what they want to focus on.
People will make room for what they want.
Absolutely. You look at people's budgets and you like, oh, I see where your money is going.
Listen, we will make room to go get some clothes, to spend it on our kids, for the travel, for eating out. Like we will make room for what
And
we want.
justify
We will
and
justify all
justify
day
doing
long,
it.
all day
Yes.
long. And so the thing is how bad do you want to participate in whatever that charitable
Mm-hmm.
opportunity is? You know, how meaningful is it to you? What is at stake if you don't participate? You know, and it's no guilt. I mean,
Yeah.
I think sometimes for sure with tithing, there's a lot of guilt
Well,
involved.
I think I've tried to create like the way we live and even what we have instilled in our children is, I've always talked about being responsible
Yeah,
and having spiritual, financial, social responsibility.
yeah,
And when you do those things, no matter what you encounter in life, it's gonna ladder back up to one of those things. And I think when you're spiritually, financially, and socially responsible, you want to be a giver
yeah.
because to be socially responsible, you got to look at the people standing next to you.
Mm-hmm.
You have to take your eyes and your focus off of yourself and look at
You
others
have to
around you.
see them.
Yes, and when you do that, you can't ignore what you see.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see something, they say you see something, say something. It's like if you see something, you have to do something.
Right.
And I know that we have, tithing is one thing, but we support different different things additionally.
Right.
And I just think as we continue to go on in life, I think the philanthropic thing that is in our heart
Mm-hmm.
isn't going to go away. Like our desire to, build a scholarship fund or,
Mm-hmm.
different things because we value education and we want
Right.
to see others continue to go on and be educated and not for it to be a burden.
Right.
And
Right.
so I think a lot of this stuff that we're talking about, it comes back truly to heart issues. Like,
Yeah.
where is your heart? Where is your passion? Where is your desire?
Mm-hmm. The analogy that I have heard and I do repeat is an open hand works both ways, right? So if you have your hand closed up in a fist, nothing can get in and nothing can get out, right? So you might be holding on to that money real tightly so nobody else can have it, but also nothing else can get in. And then if you open it up, then somebody can put something in there.
Come in there, I can just.
Come on, hey, let's go, let's go. Whoa, wait a minute.
It's just this just for visual effect.
Come on now.
It's just some
Wait,
singles anyway.
we
so don't worry
won,
about it.
but we won though. Give me
Yeah,
that.
I got you.
You know what? That's my money anyway. Because I gave you $20 the other night. You know what I'm saying? It's all
I
one.
held on to it.
He did, and then he mentioned it again. You did, and then you was like, you did give me 20 before. Yeah, can I have this change? Can I have this $8? But so anyway, but yeah, if your hand is open, then money can flow in and money can flow out. It just an open heart, an open hand means that the money can actually flow. And I think
Right.
if we hold on too tightly and we're only thinking about ourselves, then only ourselves will be able to keep anything.
That's a good example.
Yeah.
But I think also in all of that, it's important to take care of yourself first.
Yeah.
Like you have to get your house in order, but I still think there's ways to make in taking care of yourself, there's still ways to make room
Right.
for others.
Well, and I think it means when I think about taking care of yourself, I wouldn't sacrifice your basic needs to ensure that somebody else has, like I wouldn't sacrifice basic needs like food on the table, or you got to juggle, electric bill, or you can't pay down your debt. Like honestly, I think extra money towards debt is important. That's putting yourself first. I wouldn't sacrifice those things in order to give to a charitable cause, right? So I think that looking at your budget and making room for some of those extra things is important, but don't, go so deeply that you can't take care of your family.
Look, I definitely say don't despise small beginnings.
Sure.
Because
absolutely.
taking care of yourself, maybe there's a little room, that little can grow over time.
So if somebody is dealing with the fact that them and their partner are not on the same page about giving, how do you think that should be handled?
Ooh, it's always a difficult issue when if you're in I think it's two ways, because if you're in a relationship where you're not married and your finances are separate, I think you can kind of still do what you choose
Sure.
to do. If you want to be a giver and your partner isn't a giver, but you're not in a marital relationship, I mean, do you. Because they can't tell you how to spend your money in that instance. But once you make the decision to become a coupled relationship and maybe you combine your money, or even if you separate your money in a coupled relationship, because a lot of people do that, I think you still have to have some conversation and say, hey, we're not on the same page with this, but here's where my commitment is. And see if you can get agreement on
Right.
an amount
Right.
that you would give, especially in shared finances. I think when you have separate finances, even in a married relationship, there is this mutual pot
Yeah.
that money goes into. And as long as you meet your commitment to that mutual pot, you can still kind of choose to do what you want to do with the rest of your funds. But that's what I would say. I mean, what about you? How would you tell someone to approach that?
I think it does start with communication. I definitely think it starts with communication. I also think that you don't want to force or try and behave as if you're forcing anybody to do anything. Right. And so I would ask, what is on your heart about this? How do you feel about this internally? Is it something that you really want to do? And are you okay if I do it?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Like how much can we agree upon that I do? Right? And so
because if it's a passion for you, I shouldn't be holding you back
right.
from pursuing
So
or
seek
following
agreement.
that
So
yeah.
like you might want to I'm just going to throw a number out there. Maybe what it is that you desire to do, whatever charitable activity it is, you desire to do $200 a month. And if your partner or spouse is not in agreement, or you guys have goals that for which they're concerned about, come to agreement on what the number is. Like the communication, be specific about the communication, because maybe the number is more like $100 where they're not going to fight you on this.
Right. You're not going to create a level of contention.
Exactly. Don't create that space.
Look, we do that.
Yeah.
Because something will come up and it's like, okay, well, we want to, we may both be committed to giving or something extra, and then we'll say, okay, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And then we find that medium ground where we're both in agreement. Like, hey, I was thinking this, and you were thinking that.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, somebody has to move a little more to the middle.
We're not on the same page.
Yeah.
So sometimes, now, last week in particular, I was like, hey, how much do you want to give to this cause? And you said the number that was in my head. And I was like, boom,
Right, so we were
done,
like, bam.
Press play, let's go. But sometimes it is
Sometimes
not
it's
that
like,
easy. Sometimes
yeah.
the divide is so big sometimes there are initiatives that we're like, we know that the number is going to be larger and the gap between us is larger. And we're like, okay.
And sometimes it requires us to walk away for a minute.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I love to sleep on it a bit, So
because we walk away and then we circle back. We're like, okay, I thought about this. I heard this is where you were at. This is where I'm at. Can you move to, here where I'm at? Or can I move to there where you're at? And we find that medium ground that we can agree upon, because at the end of the day, it's typically something that is not negative or something that's going to be hurtful. We're doing it for a positive reason.
Right. But think about this. This could also be something that people face, is that if you sleep on it or you give it a little time because the deadline is, let's say, a week or two or a month away, and you're like, all right, I would love to participate in this. Let's sleep on it. And then a couple days later, something happens, an emergency strikes. And you're like, wait a minute. That number is different.
Might have been the right thing to sleep on it.
Yeah, right. So like wisdom would say, don't jump the gun.
Yeah.
Don't do it so quickly that you haven't had a chance to sort of vet out what makes sense in that moment. But if it's small enough where that's not a big deal, great. I mean, if it's $50 or it's something quick or whatever, like maybe you have your threshold. And
I think this is a good point to remind people that we're talking about being a giver.
Yes.
In whatever form or fashion that can take. I think it's very important that, I guess this is my make it worth it.
Okay, let's go. Okay.
I think that having that conversation and communication and assessing where each of your hearts is at, and then deciding what can you feasibly do, or is this something that if you can't do it today, this is a goal. But I think like to make it worth it and to, focus on being a giver, you have to communicate, like you said. but I think you really have to check your own heart, because that will a lot of times guide you to make a more informed decision. And so I really think for me to make it worth it, I have to check my heart, and then I have to communicate with you specifically where I'm at and assess where you're at, because then that will make a determination on how we move forward.
Absolutely.
So what about you?
I think that giving should not cause stress, strain, or struggle, be it with your partner or between you and your relationship with God. If it is, your tithing, it should not create stress, strain, or struggle. So if it is stressful, or it's straining the budget, or it's a struggle to put it out there, like, oh Lord, then let's recheck the time and the amount and have a conversation, like you said, because it really ought not to be that challenging. So something is amiss if it is causing stress, strain, or struggle. And like I said, it might be the amount, it might be the timing. And then honestly, if this is the tithe that we're talking about, or giving above the tithe, etc., all that kind of stuff, pray. Literally pray. I think
that song keep playing in my head. You can't be God's given, no matter how you try.
Yes.
I always think about one of the old school Baptist deacons that was, the more you give, the more he gives to you.
See, I didn't.
Just keep on giving.
Hey, come on, he went deep on that one. All right, Tenor.
I think this was
beat God's given.
Yeah, I think this is. I think it's just one of those practical things that people have to work through as you're on whatever phase of your journey. I think this is something that you're going to have to talk about.
Right.
Whether it's on the beginning, middle, or end phase, because I know we'll get to a point where we have to talk about it and assess, like, as we get into bigger things, how we're going to move. So
yeah, it's just practical stuff. I think it's good practice, especially when it's the smaller items. But when it's something intense or you feel so passionate about,
it's muscle building.
Yes.
You keep exercising that muscle so you get it, you work it, and you make it grow and develop. So
this was good.
Yeah,
this is good. So hopefully, you will be givers, because I think it's very rewarding. And we don't give to get. We give just because it's just on our heart, and in that moment we think it's the right thing to do. And so hopefully this will, getting out of debt makes room for more of that to occur, because there's so many needs out in the world. So that is ultimately the reason why it's so important. But glad we talked about it finally. Yep. So until next time,
we're out. Thank you for spending some of your time with us today.
We appreciate all of your support. So be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
You can find us on Instagram at For Better and Worth.
And sign up to receive our free guide, The 7 Reasons Your Money Relationship Isn't Working with Your Partner, on ForBetterAndWorth.com.
Until next time, we're out of here.